Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Jack Hagel. North Carolina high school students are earning more workforce credentials than ever before. Those credentials can help prepare students for employment or better prepare them for college. WRAL Education Insider Emily Walkenhorst has been examining what's behind the boom, and she joins us now. Emily, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
North Carolina schools have offered career-specific classes for decades, but you report that there's been a significant increase in offerings and uptake in recent years. Why is that?
Right. So there are a couple of pieces to that. So one is kind of just the funding. So the state has been over the years increasing funding for these things, helping schools to expand their program offerings. But students are also taking advantage of credentials. So they're earning some actual piece that shows that they have mastered a certain skill, something like that. And some of that has come from also the specific increase in the state funding the assessments for those credentials. So now students can more easily just take them and they can earn these credentials. Industry is also really interested in having students have this knowledge. They're opening facilities here. They're wanting to hire people, and they're trying to get people on a fast track at younger ages to be thinking about working in biotechnology or some other, manufacturing process. There's a nursing shortage. Places want more nurses. They want to get people on these tracks so they can hire them.
Let's talk numbers. How much has this grown? And also, what kinds of credentials are there? Can you give us some examples?
So the most recent report we have from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction that's specific to the credentials that students are earning showed that in the 2016-2017 school year, they earned about 160,000 credentials. Then there was some funding increase for these assessments. The number started going over 200,000. They started getting pretty high. And then suddenly in the last 2 years, they've surged well above 300,000. It's now 358,000 credentials earned by North Carolina students last year. That's probably almost one for every high school student in North Carolina. So it's just really taken off. And as far as what they're learning, that really runs the gamut, because you could have, things, students are learning carpentry. You maybe when you think of workforce, you think of something that's very hands-on, and a lot of it is very hands-on. So carpentry, masonry, automotive tech, electric tech, emergency response. That was a big one. People are learning, 911 communication, how to respond to incidents. And there's a lot of medical stuff too, pharmacy, health sciences, veterinary sciences. There's just a lot of different things that you can get experience with.
And some of these they're getting before they even get their high school diploma. What do they do after they graduate with these credentials?
So you can take any number of paths. I think, a lot of students are going to be interested in getting a head start on getting that career. Some students are also using these because they know that they're going to need a lot of money for their four-year college degree. Maybe they know they're going to need even more than a four-year college degree because maybe they want a doctorate in nursing and not just a CNA license, and everything really just builds on itself. So maybe you think you want a doctorate in nursing, and maybe you decide actually you love your job as a registered nurse, and you don't think you need to build on that at some point. But it's all building blocks, right? So you start off you can get a certified nursing assistant credential in high school before you even graduate. And then you can choose to build on that later on to become a registered nurse or more than that someday.
And these credentials count towards credit, right?
Yeah, you can get college credit, and not just in nursing. I talked to a student in Apex who is he's learning a bunch of graphic design software, and he's completing different projects, different softwares by different companies. And, he's looking at university next year, and he's thinking, actually, some of these schools are going to offer a credit for, they're going to give me 3 credit hours for having, all this knowledge, because now I don't need to take their entry-level graphic design class for my major.
And that means a lot at a time when the cost of college is really going up, right?
Right. I mean, one class traditional 3 credit hour class could run you several $100s, even at a public university in North Carolina, where they've really tried to keep tuition steady. It can still cost a lot.
Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll hear about how these courses are helping one Apex student enter the nursing profession. Stick around. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. We're talking with WRAL Education Insider Emily Walkenhorst about career and technical education in North Carolina public schools. Emily, you spoke with a student in Apex who wants to advance in the field of nursing, and by the time she graduates, she expects to have a pretty useful credential. Can you walk us through her story?
Right. So Catalina Palazzolo, she is a senior, and she got started on the health sciences track at Apex Friendship High School. So what that is Health Science 1 is your first class. A lot of sophomores are going to be in that class. And in that class, you get like a first aid credential. That's kind of your first one. You learn how to wrap ankles when somebody's twisted them, different things like that. And then you move on to Health Sciences 2, where you can earn a few more credentials and things like, bleeding emergencies and other types, more advanced type first aid and medical assistance. And then you take a third class. If you're interested in nursing, it's called Nursing Fundamentals. And that's where you learn a lot more of the routines of being a nurse, how you're supposed to do certain things. And you learn to take vital signs, and you learn all the protocols, even how to wash hands properly. There are rules for that. In this Nursing Fundamentals class, she even does work on mannequins. They have hospital beds, they have mannequins, they even have this arm that has like a fake wound in it. It's a plastic arm, has a fake wound in it, and then it has tubes that simulate bleeding. And so you got to, figure out how to stop the bleeding. And so they can actually get up to 10 clinical hours just in this classroom. They still have to get some more at Wake Med, but then Wake Med helps them get those additional clinical hours so they can become a CNA.
So these are pretty hands-on courses. They're not just textbook classes, right?
Right. I mean, they're kind of engaging in multiple levels. You are physically doing the work. You're watching other people demonstrate it for you. You're even hearing from people in the field. They make sure they have speakers cycling in and out about it. Hey, here's what it's actually like to work in a hospital.
So I would imagine that this requires a lot of collaboration between schools and industry. You mentioned the Wake Med partnership. How does all that work? How does that come together?
Right. So it's a lot of, coordination, and that's the thing about kind of all of these is, a university has to decide, hey, that it's worth it for us to give credit for this thing, or community college. And some of that is, lawmakers, just people with influence going to the people they know and saying, hey, we'd love to start this program. And in the industries themselves really see the value in it. I mean, we've seen, biotech is a big industry growing in different parts of the Triangle area. And, we've seen high schools add biotech programs, and that seems to be a growing thing. We're not seeing the ends of biotech programs in high schools because they want people to be prepared to work in those fields. And when it comes to nursing specifically, there is a shortage of nurses out there. We have an aging population, so we need more nurses. But, a lot of that is a boomer population, so there's a lot more of them, and smaller populations of people actually in the workforce maybe to serve them. And there are a lot of hiring challenges there. So it's in everyone's best interest. Oh, well, what if we helped train people to become nurses, encourage people to become nurses? They could work for us.
Do we have any numbers on how many of these people actually enter the fields of the credentials that they've earned?
That's not something that's in the state's report, but we know that, in talking to a lot of these students, they have every intention of doing that. I mean, I talked to this student in Apex who plans to become a CNA. She can work as a CNA while she continues to get her higher degree in nursing. She wants to be a nurse anesthetist, which would require considerable additional schooling, but she can build on that. She can become a registered nurse and then work as a registered nurse while she's still pursuing her doctorate in nursing. And so, and looking at the finances of a lot of it, there's a lot of incentive for her to continue on that path.
Now, you mentioned that lawmakers have increased funding for these credentials. Do you expect them to do more to support these programs?
So there's a big appetite among decision makers to have students learn these things in high school. We know that we hear all the time, not just from the students themselves, but from their parents, from lawmakers and others. Students really need to feel like a four-year college degree is not the only path for them. And we know in the data, you have a ton of students go to school. Less than half of adults end up having a bachelor's degree. So obviously that's not really the most common pathway anyway already. So how do we make sure people are, ready at younger ages to enter this workforce? We've seen so much emphasis on that in the private sector and, among lawmakers. The momentum only seems to be building. We even have nonprofits that are dedicated to this, and of course chambers of commerce are always very interested. So the momentum seems to just be growing.
Going to be interesting to see how this evolves. Thanks, Emily.
Of course.
That's WRAL Education Insider Emily Walkenhorst for her deep look at career training for high schoolers in North Carolina. Go to the education section of WRAL.com. I'm Jack Hagel. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.